let me welcome all of you to this very special conference that we are having today. In fact, with the 20th International Online Conference on Thirukkural and UNESCO for World Peace, in fact, today we have a very special and eminent speaker, Dr. MARAIMALAI ILAKKUVANAR, whom I will briefly introduce. I will just introduce, and then I'll invite my respected elder, Dr. Prabhakaran, who had referred us, would introduce Dr. MARAIMALAI ILAKKUVANAR to us, and since he has been associated with him, he knows the great work that he has done. We want him to give us the honor and the privilege to give us a presentation, to introduce our speaker, and also to share some of his experiences and exchanges he had with our eminent speaker. So therefore, I would simply briefly welcome all of you to this 20th conference since 2021, when we started on the 15th of January 2021. And Dr. MARAIMALAI ILAKKUVANAR is a Tamil scholar, eminent speaker, poet, literary art analyst, and recipient of Thiru.Vi.Ka award by government of Tamil Nadu, and special visiting professor, California University. Just an introduction before Professor Prabhakaran, Dr. Prabhakaran, would give us a more enlightening insight into the work and the contribution of our esteemed speaker today, or especially with reference to Thirukkural. So I'm sure all of us would be eagerly looking forward to the presentation, and therefore, without further ado, probably I would like to tell you that our mission of taking Thirukkural to the world is progressing, thanks to the blessings of, first of all, Saint Thiruvalluvar himself, but also with all your support, all the collaboration and contribution that each one of you is making with a lot of faith, with a lot of conviction, and with a lot of determination that one day we'll be able to, all of us, join together to take Thirukkural to the world, especially within the framework of the mission of Thirukkural, together with UNESCO, to build peace in the minds of man, and also to create world peace and harmony. So with these few words of introduction, it's my privilege now to invite Dr. Prabhakaran to introduce our eminent speaker of this afternoon. Thank you very much. Dr. Prabhakaran, please.
Thank you, Dr. R.O.M. Parasuraman. It is indeed my pleasure to welcome and introduce Dr. MARAIMALAI ILAKKUVANAR. Dr. MARAIMALAI ILAKKUVANAR is the famous son of the famous Professor ILAKKUVANAR, who we all know, heard about him at least. Dr. MARAIMALAI has served as the professor in the Presidency College in Chennai for a number of years, and is now retired. He has also served as a visiting professor at the University of California, Berkeley. Dr. MARAIMALAI is a man of multiple talents. He is a poet, orator, professor, author, and an eminent speaker. He, in addition to the numerous books he has written, recently in the last 2 years, he has been the author, or he has been the chief editor and publisher of some of the most interesting electronic magazines on Thirukkural. The first and the third Sunday, Kural Neri comes out in flying colors and with excellent articles in Tamil on Thirukkural. And then again, 2 times a month, I think the first and the third, another 2 times a month, in electronic magazine, Thirukkural Express comes out. And there's another one called Kural Murakkam, which talks about people who have achieved their work in Thirukkural is published once a month. And again, one more called Kural Virundu for the youngsters. I just always wonder how Dr. Maraimalai has time for all these publications without stop. It just keeps coming every week, every month. I see him working on this. And Dr. Maraimalai is one of the professors, one of the scholars who has a commitment to Thirukkural, a commitment to social justice, and he has served with distinction for a number of years. And indeed, it's a great pleasure, and I'm anxiously waiting to hear his talk today. Dr. Maraimalai, the floor is yours.
My dear friends who have spared their valuable time to attend this Zoom conference, and Thirukkural Dr. Prabhakaran, who is a dedicated author and writer on Thirukkural in both Tamil and English for a very long time, and our revered Dr. Arumugam Parasuramen, scholar statesman, and one among the architects of the modern Mauritius, and have become a global trotter to propagate Thirukkural. And he is a missionary for Thirukkural, and he is doing a lot. He is going to achieve the announcement of Thirukkural as an universal book by the UNESCO, all with the efforts of Dr. Arumugam Parasuramen. We are indebted to him. And my dear friends, my vanakkam. The topic today is the culture of peace and Thirukkural. What's a culture of peace? A culture of peace is a set of values, attitudes, modes of behavior, and ways of life based on respect for life, ending of violence, and promotion and practice of non-violence through education, dialogue, and cooperation. The full definition given by the UN Declaration is: a culture of peace is a set of values, attitudes, traditions, and modes of behavior and ways of life based on respect for life, ending of violence, and promotion and practice of non-violence through education, dialogue, and cooperation. Full respect for the principles of sovereignty, territorial integrity, and political independence of states, and non-intervention in matters which are essentially within the domestic jurisdiction of any state in accordance with the Charter of the United Nations and international law. Full respect for and promotion of all human rights and fundamental freedom. Commitment to peaceful settlement of conflicts. Efforts to meet the developmental and environmental needs of present and future generations. Respect for and promotion of the right to development. Respect for and promotion of equal rights and opportunities for women and men. Respect for and promotion of the right of everyone to freedom of expression, opinion, and information. Adherence to the principles of freedom, justice, democracy, tolerance, solidarity, cooperation, pluralism, cultural diversity, dialogue, and understanding of all levels of society and among nations, and fostered by an enabling national and international environment conducive to peace. This is UN Declaration and Program of Action on a Culture of Peace, Resolution number 53/243, page 2, General Assembly, 93rd session during October 1999, UNESCO. The UN Declaration on a Culture of Peace and Nonviolence contains more detail than needed and was politicized in the process of its adoption. The culture of peace has been defined in a number of different UN resolutions, and I prefer the following definition, which combines the approaches taken by the important UN resolutions: the Program of Action on a Culture of Peace adopted in 1999 and the 1998 UN Resolution on the Culture of Peace. A culture of peace is an integral approach to preventing violence and violent conflicts and an alternative to the culture of war and violence based on education for peace, the promotion of sustainable economic and social development, respect for human rights, equality between women and men, democratic participation, tolerance, and free flow of information disarmament. The final 8 points are the 8 points of the program of action adopted by the General Assembly. The phrase alternative to the culture of war and violence comes from the initial paragraph of the 1998 UN resolution on the culture of peace, which reads in full. Recalling the preamble to the Charter of the United Nations and the purposes and principles of the United Nations, and recalling also that the creation of the United Nations system itself, based upon universally shared values and goals, has been a major act towards transformation from a culture of war and violence to a culture of peace and non-violence. Note that in this article, I have used the phrase culture of peace and non-violence interchangeably. The former should be assumed to include non-violence, since non-violence is a necessary aspect of the culture of peace. Similarly, the global movement for a culture of peace should be assumed to be, more precisely, the global movement for a culture of peace and non-violence. For non-violence, if one wishes to be more consistent with the terminology of Gandhi, Thirukkural may surely be called as a universal scripture due to its broad outlook, appealing to the whole of humankind. Thirukkural attributes two separate chapters in this matter, one for non-violence and another for non-killing. The chapter 32 of the Thirukkural is titled Non-Violence, emphasizes the importance of it for a peaceful life. The couplets read, "It is the nature of the spotless not to inflict sufferings on others, though by it they may get wealth and renown. It is the nature of stainless not to resist evil. Even our vengeance for a wanton injury results in our own unbearable sorrow. The noblest revenge is to put the foe to the blush by your acts of kindness. What profiteth one's reason if one does not feel others' sufferings as his own and guard against them? Avoid all that causes pain to others. It is the supremest virtue not to commit at any time even slight injury to others. How is it a man inflicts injury upon others, knowing how painful it would be to himself? As a night follows day, evil that we do recoils on us. All sufferings befall those who inflict harm on others. Those who desire immunity from suffering never commit injury. These are all the couplets, the meaning of the couplets from the chapter 32 titled Non-Violence. And chapter 33 is non-killing. If you would ask what is a virtue, it is but non-killing. From killing out of lives on earth do all the evils spring. The quintessence of all the codes of law of every sect is but to share one's bread with all beings, send them protect. A virtue good is non-killing, unique, and sans compare. But next to that is non-lying, a virtue good and rare. If you would ask, what is the way of goodness true? It is taught, it is a way which doth devise the non-killings of aught. Of all who have in dead of birth renounced the word, the king is he who dreads all killing and who promotes non-killing. That God who doth swallow lives never would dare to spring upon the life of one who keeps his vow of non-killing. Do not form whatever being part its life is cherished. Should even such act of abstinence make thy own self perish? Although the blessings born of killing lives in sacrifice may be quite great, the noble hold them demeaning wise. The beastly men of cruel acts of killing are indeed by men discerning, deemed as those who are meanest breed. The man of bound stained frames and starving low lives, or it is said, the men who had the living beings killed, spilling their blood on. These two chapters, it is reliably learned, were sent by Leo Tolstoy to Mahatma Gandhi so as to introduce Thirukkural to him. In this context, it is relevant and significant to recall how, inspired by Valluvam or the way of Kural, Mahatma Gandhi practiced the same and proved that Valluvam is not a utopian ideal but a practical proposition. Gandhi said, I learned Tamil only to enable me to study Thiruvallur's Kural through his mother tongue itself. There is none who has given such a treasure of wisdom like him. It is interesting to note that Gandhi came to know of Thirukkural through Leo Tolstoy, the Russian philosopher and writer. In 1908, Tolstoy wrote a letter which was titled as A Letter to a Hindu. The letter was later translated and published by Mahatma Gandhi with an introduction. To me, as a humble follower of that great teacher, whom I have long looked upon as one of my guides, it is a matter of honor to be connected with the publication of this letter, such especially as the one which is now being given to the world. Gandhi describes Tolstoy's way and approach to life through the following words. Tolstoy's life has been devoted to replacing the method of violence for removing tyranny or securing reform by the method of non-resistance to evil. He would meet hatred expressed in violence by love expressed in self-suffering. He admits of no exception to whittle down this great and divine love is applies to all the problems that trouble mankind. Tolstoy had quoted the couplets of Thirukkural in the chapter on not doing evil or inna seyyamai or non-violence and the chapter non-killing. Tolstoy in his letter Gandhi had described Thirukkural as Hindu Kural. This letter of Tolstoy which quoted Thirukkural drew Gandhi's attention to learn Thirukkural. He described Thirukkural as Tamil holy book. Gandhi's life was contained in the two words non-violence and truth. Thirukkural enunciates the same two in a single words in the same order. Non-killing, that is non-violence. Non-killing is a supreme virtue. If you want a second one, follow truth, that is non-falsehood. Gandhi's respect for Thiruvallur and regards for Thirukkural can be seen in a note he published in his journal under the caption Tamil Holy Book. Thiruvallur is a Tamil saint. Tradition says that he is a weaver. He gave us the famous Thirukkural holy maxims described by Tamils as the Tamil Veda. This is published in Harijan dated 6th July 1935. Gandhi learned Tamil from an affluent merchant, Tillayadi Vedian Pillai, whose name is ignored by Gandhian scholars, and by his Tamil learning, Gandhiji taught Tamil to the resident students of Tolstoy Ashram, a relevant fact worth quotable here. Of all the Thirukkural couplets quoted by Tolstoy, it is told that the couplet which tells a virtue good is non-killing, unique and sans compare, but next to that is non-lying, a virtue good and rare, attracted Gandhi's attention and he took it as his motto, non-killing and non-violence, renamed as Ahimsa, and non-lying, renamed as Satyagraha, were his politico-social strategies throughout his life. Inspired strongly by Thirukkural, Mahatma Gandhi inspired all sections of the society to fight for freedom from the foreign yoke through his deliberately chosen path of truth and non-violence. He provided inspiration to many oppressed nations in the world to fight against colonization and become free. He continues to inspire the world even today after many years of his martyrdom. The Thirukkural can be hailed as an eternal light which illuminates the world for over 2000 years. Mahatma Gandhi got the spark from Thirukkural, and from him Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, and many more leaders who fought against oppression and tyranny, adhering to a non-violent way preached by Thirukkural and practiced by Gandhiji. Surely, truth and non-violence are the only ways to contain terrorism and religious fundamentalism, which are spoiling many parts of the world where mass murder and sabotage are destroying mankind and destabilizing many nations. Thirukkural, the proud possession of Tamil people, remains at the same time as a magnificent masterpiece of literature, which the entire humankind adores as a precious treasure of pragmatic thoughts and valuable ideas. While in every other work of the same kind, man is addressed with a racial label and ethnic identity. Thirukkural addresses the entire humanity, irrespective of race, nation, color, or creed. The main aim of this wonderful treatise on human life is to guide everyone in the world to lead a blissful life. The author Thiruvalluvar never interferes in this work anywhere to assert his authority. Instead, he acts as a friend and a counselor to remind the reader of his work, his or her duties and responsibilities to the family and society. If everyone follows his kind words of advice, then there will not be any friction in the family and there will never be any chance of war in the world. Thiruvalluvar neither preached a separate religion nor did he announce him as a messenger from God. Even though the first chapter of Quran is in praise of the Almighty, it does not denote any particular God belonging to any particular denomination. In fact, the mission of Quran is to release the entire humankind from the clutches of religious fanaticism. As according to Professor Winternitz, Thiruvalluvar stands above all races, castes, and sects, and what it teaches is a general human mortality and wisdom. No wonder that the Quran was not only been much read, studied, and highly praised in the land of origin for centuries, but has also found many admirers in the West ever since it has become known. Reverend Percival, a missionary in Jaffna, wrote of the Quran as nothing in the whole compass of human language can equal the force and terseness of the couples in which the Valluvar conveys the lessons of wisdom, and there is no exaggeration in his assessment. The renowned British missionary, Reverend Dr. G. Pope, a great Tamil scholar who translated the Quran into English during the 19th century, says the following about Valluvar: all things changing, dieth not thy fame, for thou art God of universal man. All things changing, dieth not thy fame, for thou art God of universal man. Thiruvasagamani K. M. Balasubramanian describes the uniqueness of Thirukkural in a poetic manner, the grandeur of a Milton, the grace of a Dante, the universality of Shakespeare, the sublimity of an Aristotle, the idealism of a Plato, and the moral fervor of a Marcus Aurelius are all to be found in harmonious blending and appropriate proportion in this Bible of mankind. This universal character notwithstanding, the Quran is a testament of the Tamils. It has been the fountain of inspiration to generations of geniuses, saints, and moralists, statesmen, and princes. K. M. Balasubramanian succeeds in an exact presentation of the sublime qualities of Thirukkural in an inspiring manner, so as to attract readers to have a study of this wonderful book. His rendering of Thirukkural in English has already attracted thousands of readers throughout the world and still remains as a befitting tribute to the great scholar. Thiruvalluvar, as it is powerful tool to propagate Thirukkural to non-Tamil readers in India and abroad. The famous Tamil poet Mahakavi Subramania Bharatiyar of the 20th century says, The land of the Tamil-speaking people has attained great glory by giving Valluvar to the whole world. The land of the Tamil-speaking people will now attain great glory by announcing Thirukkural as a universal scripture at UNESCO by the efforts of our Dr. PARSURAMEN. Reverend G. Pope and K. M. Balasubramanian considered that a task of translating Thirukkural as a mission and accomplished their noble venture in a splendid manner. There are 58 English translations of Thirukkural, and it has been translated in as many as 97 languages. It is not the intention of this chapter to give a detailed account of the translations, but we can have a glance of the list of translations available at Wikipedia. We have got details of Thirukkural translated into 97 languages. The data needs an update as of the announcement of the Indian government proclaiming Tamil as a classical language. There arose a multitude of translations of Thirukkural in many languages. It is not my aim to catalog the translations. The fact that it stands next only to Bible and Quran in getting translated throughout the world is a solid proof for the universal appeal and international outlook of Thirukkural. Thirukkural do not belong to any particular religion. The scriptures are to be followed without any question. Thirukkural requires everybody in the earth to question everything. Whatever may be the matter heard through whatever source, to perceive and to grasp its core of truth is wisdom's force. Whereas the scriptures insist on faith, Thirukkural asks everybody to analyze everything before accepting Thiruvallur did not perform any miracle and had not established a religion. We do not know whether he left behind any disciples to propagate his sublime ideas. He considered every man, women as his audience. He did not restrict his book to any particular race, country, or religion. The universality of Thirukkural is its unique character, as at a couplet of occasions he has mentioned two gods as mythical allusions for the sake of comparison. But on no poem he had advocated for the worship of any particular god or goddess. Dr. S. Krishnasamy Iyengar rightly declares this. Among the world's poets and prophets whose claims to the universality may readily be considered, Thiruvallur will certainly take a high rank. His claims to the rank as a poet will not perhaps be contested at all. As a teacher of religion and morality, he stands equally eminent. His work, the Qural, may be regarded as laying down a norm of life which would command acceptance from the votaries of differing religious persuasions, not only in India, the land of religions, but even elsewhere, where religion as such may not command the same ready and unquestioning allegiance. As the universality of Thirukkural is well understood, widely acknowledged, and highly appreciated by various scholars throughout the world, there is no meaning in comparing it with religious works which aim a minuscule minority. Periyar EVR tells that the Thirukkural will pave a lofty way for the eradication of superstition and the enlargement of knowledge. The thoughts of the Qural should be spread throughout the country. It should be brought about that education means the learning of Qural and knowledge means the awareness of the Qural. As per the citation given by UNESCO during 27th June 1970, Periyar is the prophet of the new age, the Socrates of Southeast Asia, father of the social reform movement, and arch enemy of ignorance, superstitions, meaningless customs, and base manners. It is only Periyar who propagated Thirukkural to the Tamil society. Why he chose Thirukkural as a guide for an ideal life? He tells the reason. The Quran is not a devotional book. It is not also a book of theology to reveal God, nor is it a book of religious doctrines for evangelism. It only teaches true and egalitarian conduct which is agreeable to all. He who has intelligence and beholds knowledge as supreme, and he who has a capacity to think and investigate will certainly respect and admire the Quran, follow it to some extent, at least, and keep it as his guide. The Quran embodies in it ethics and practical ways of life based on experience. The Quran is a treasure trove of knowledge. It is a work bound by reason. Thus says Periyar EVR. Vedam Venkataraya Sastri, born on 21st December 1853 and died on 16th June 1929, was a Sanskrit and Telugu language poet, critic, Telugu theatre star, and dramatist. He is known for providing authoritative editions of Sanskrit Telugu classics. He is respected for providing authoritative editions of Sanskrit Telugu classics. He had worked as a Sanskrit Pandit in the Madras Christian College for 25 years. He wrote original drama and translated Sanskrit dramas of Kalidasa and Harsha. He established a dramatic association named Andhra Bhashabhimani Nataka Samajam in 1899. In the year 1922, he received Mahomahobatyaya Award by Andhra Mahasabha. Sastri, a scholar of the previous century, clearly illustrates the uniqueness of Thirukkural in his article. The greatness of Thirukkural in the history of Indian literature, nay, in that of world literature, cannot be overestimated. It occupies a unique place both as a book of morals and an excellent piece of poetic composition. Though I wanted to confine myself to Telugu translations and similar works in Telugu literature, I felt called upon, after going deeper into the book, that the subject needs wider treatment by its very innate universal appeal. As much is said of its poetic excellence, I confine myself to the first part of my statement, that is, Quran as a book of morals. Modern scholars, in their enthusiasm and admiration to the great teacher, are not tired of calling the book a religious one and a moral code. They call it the Tamil Veda, Tamil Bible, Tamil Quran, and so on at the same time, emphasizing on the secular character and universal appeal, standing above all sectarian and racial prejudices. These statements sound contradictory and sometimes make one feel that they are the outcome of confused thinking. Religious views seldom rise above the prejudices of the sect, caste, creed, or nationality, and humanity at present is, on this basis, divided into airtight compartments, making cultural contacts and emotional integrity difficult, if not impossible. From my humble cursory glance of this great book, I do not find anything religious about it. By religion, I mean anything about God and other worldliness. There is nothing otherworldly in it, and the author appeals to have had no mind to teach his readers any particular way to realize God or find happiness in the heaven at the end of his life on earth. He definitely wants us to realize actual facts around us in the mundane earth, strive to be happy in this birth, in our present condition of flesh and blood, and live a clean life without quarrels, differences, and even small bickerings. He does not worry about God without being atheistic at the same time. He wants us to pray to God and be good, but makes no fuss about religiosity. As a renowned Sanskrit scholar, Mahamohabhatyaya Vedam Venkataraya Sastri openly declares us, from my humble cursory glance of this great book, I do not find anything religious about it. We need not be confused by some opinions that Thirukkural is an essence of Hindu Dharma Shastras. Thirukkural is neither an adaptation nor a translation of any other direct literature in any other language. The genius of Thiruvalluvar, who envisaged a world free from the clutches of religion, race, and nationality, is so great beyond any comparison. There is no single mention of any religion, race, or nationality. It appeals to the whole of humankind for unity, integration, and solidarity for the building up of an egalitarian society devoid of differences and disparity. The distinction between man and woman is based mainly on the difference of religion or color or nation. But there are no natural or physiological differences and distinction. The distinction of color is the result of different climate conditions. Such distinctions as these are negation of the fundamental underlying unity between man and man. Kural code bases its principles on this unity and entire human race for human good, benefit, and welfare. It teaches universal brotherhood of man, and fatherhood of God. Kural code is not confined to any country, race, or religion. It is based on the principle of world citizenship and world state. Any man is a citizen of the world and belongs to the world, and the world belongs to him. It offers a solution to the individual as well as to world problems, solutions to the political, social, economic, racial problems for which the world is suffering. Its outlook is the broadest. Quran is far above the religious level. Book of each religion is intended for those who owe allegiance to it. It extols their religion at the cost of others. Quran does not suffer from such limitation of religion. It teaches ethical life for the entire mankind. The value of Quranary is incomparably supreme. The value of Quranary is incomparably supreme, unequaled, and unparalleled. Quran code is a message of Tamilian race, conveying the principle of universal brotherhood to the rest of the world. Contains the essence of Tamilian culture. It conveys a message of love to the world, says Dr. Ilakkuvanar, the founder, editor of Quranary, English bi-monthly, and an eminent scholar who translated Thirukkural in English. Thirukkural has been broadly divided into three parts, of which the first deals with the Aram virtue, the moral value of life, the second discusses Purul, wealth, socio-economic values of life, and the third of Kam, love, depicts the psychological values of love and interaction between husband and wife. There are 38 chapters in the first part, 70 chapters in the second part, and 20 chapters in the third, which you all know. In the third part, Thirukural plays the role of creative artist. But in the first two parts, we find Thirukural as a moral philosopher and political scientist. Only in the third part, Thirukural portrays the fascinating aspects of lovers, the Agam tradition, which he has inherited from his ancestors, Sangam scholars. No significant tribute is needed for the supremacy of its subject matter than the fact that it has been translated in a number of languages in the world. Perhaps it can be claimed that there is no other work of non-religious nature which stand in comparison to Thirukkural in the range of subject matter and brevity of the couplets. Thirukkural excels the other dialect literature of the world. George C. Gower, in his book Folk Songs of Southern India, had given the following observation, which remains as a befitting tribute to Thirukkural. As a great thinker, Saint Thiruvalluvar actually transgressed the frontiers of language and creed. A scripture of universalism has introduced recognized him as one of the greatest philosophers, to be placed in the midst of Socrates, Kant, and Confucius, the illustrious moral philosophers of the mankind. In the sphere of political science and public administration, Thiruvalluvar seems supreme in his treatment and humanistic approach from Aristotle, Kautilya, Machiavelli, and Harold Lasky. When we take into consideration the third part of the Thirukkural, no other poet can be placed by the side of the Thiruvalluvar except the mysterious Roman poet Ovid, who belongs to a period of 43 BC and 18 AD, who immortalized the agony and anguish and the ecstasy and exhilaration of the loving hearts in the famous Ars Amorous. V.V.S. Iyer, in his book Maxims of Thiruvalluvar, comments as Thiruvalluvar is one of those seers whose message is intended not merely to their own age of country, but for all time, for all mankind. He has given to the world a work which in perfection of form, profundity of thought, nobleness of sentiment, and earnestness of moral purpose, very few books outside the grand scriptures of humanity can at all be compared. Our intention is not to add attributes one by one, like V.V.S. Iyer. Almost all the Tamil scholars describe Thirukkural as a book for all time, for all mankind. In a world that undergoes change and evolves continuously, how long any book or concept endure? In case it endures, what is the source of its eternal relevance? Are the thought-provoking questions from renowned scholars and literary critics. Poet and writer Dr. V.C. Kolandsamy. It is a futuristic perspective of Thiruvalluvar that had made it as an eternal treasure trove of super wisdom. Dr. Ilakkuvanar, the founder of the fortnightly magazine Coronary and a renowned scholar, further reiterates the universality of Thirukkural in one of his writings. The distinction between man and man is based mainly on the difference of religion or color or nation, but there are no natural or physiological differences and distinction. Thirukkural tells all are equal, all living beings are equal. பிறப்புக்கும் எல்லா உயிர்க்கும் மீது. All living beings are equal. Kural code is an earliest communist or socialist code. The end of the age-old Cold War has become a beginning of new threats like religious fundamentalism, imminent threats by autocratic governments masquerading as democratic rule, and militarist jingoism preaching patriotism but practicing sabotage. Thirukkural has tried. Thirukkural has given norms to lead a peaceful life in the earth itself. The chapter on rain, one syrup, it tells that it actually emphasizes the ecological balance or to avoid the ecological imbalance. Thiruvalluvar is a positive visionary and evolutionary futurist who depicts a more desirable future, articulating the positive values which will surely create a better world than his age. I wish to cite a few examples, even though I am able to give a detailed study, as I am afraid my lecture may become a lengthy one. First of all, the conception of Thiruvalluvar about a state deserves our attention. I have replaced the word kingdom by country and giving the meaning of correct couplets. A country should have a perennial natural yield, a band of noblemen endowed with virtues, wealthy persons without negative qualities. A country is that which continues to be free from excessive starvation, irremediable epidemics, and destructive force. A country is that which is without various irregular associations, destructive internal enemies, and murderous savages who sometimes harass the sovereign. These translations are by Reverend Drew. The conditions laid by Thiruvalluvar are thought-provoking. How can we get a state with a perennial natural yield? How to get a band of noblemen endowed with virtues? What is the way to obtain a host of wealthy persons without negative qualities? This Kural clearly indicates that Thiruvalluvar is a positive, visionary, and evolutionary futurist. The Kural poems quoted above shows the vision of Thiruvalluvar about an ideal state who motivates people through his poems to indicate positive qualities. Agriculture should find subtle ways and means to get a perennial natural yield. People should lead a principled life, settling themselves as exemplary citizens. Wealthy persons should keep away negative qualities and should be always adopt positive approaches. These are all the prerequisites, according to Thirukkural, to mold and shape an ideal welfare state. Even after 2040 years ago, 2053 years ago, Thirukkural, even before that, many centuries, he tells that hunger, poverty, epidemics, and terrorism are the real enemies of mankind. About 25,000 people die every day of hunger or hunger-related causes, according to United Nations. This is one person every 3.5 seconds, unfortunately. It is children who die most often. Diarrheal diseases such as cholera and dysentery kill about 1.6 million people each year, almost all of them children. In the entire history of humankind, it is believed that tuberculosis has killed more people than any other disease. In shorter periods of time, the epidemics of the Black Death and AIDS have killed more. Tuberculosis dates back to at least 4000 BC and was present in ancient Egypt, Greece, Rome, and India. Known as conception, it was responsible for 1 in 5 deaths in 17th century London. The so-called childhood disease of measles, pertussis, tetanus, and diphtheria are responsible for less than 1 million deaths per year. Over 1 million people die from malaria each year, and many millions more are seriously weakened by it. Pneumonia and other forms of acute respiratory infections kill more than 2 million children alone each year. AIDS is now second only to Black Death as the largest epidemic in history. AIDS kills over 2 million people a year, or about one person every 15 seconds. This death toll surprisingly includes a lot of children who are often infected with the HIV virus during pregnancy or through breastfeeding. Coronavirus death toll is estimated 6,339,528 till date. Death due to terrorist attacks and counter-terrorist retorts are also alarming throughout the world. In this context, Thirukkural's definition for welfare state that a country should be devoid of a country in that which continues to be free from excessive starvation, irremediable epidemics, and destructive force proves him as a positive and visionary futurist. The following verses of Thirukkural clearly show his far-sighted approach. Freedom from epidemics, wealth, produce, happiness, and protection to subjects or citizens. These 5, the Leonards say, are the ornaments of a kingdom or country. Although in possession of all the above mentioned excellences, these are no use to a country in the absence of harmony between the sovereign and the subjects. I do not dare delve deep in advanced research to point out the in-depth analysis of Thirukkural about an ideal state which is highly futuristic and has relevance till date. There are many comparisons of Thirukkural's approach with that of Aristotle, Plato, Marcus Aurelius, Machiavelli, Chanakya, and many more theoreticians done by many learned scholars. In this lecture, I just wish to give an introduction to the Thirukkural's futuristic approach, which has yielded positive thoughts leading to culture of peace. And I request the ardent readers who are interested to probe further so as to find and admire the uniqueness of Thirukkural. Thirukkural's definitions for an ideal state, powerful enemy, mighty minister, able administrators, and dynamic investigators of the intelligence wing, loyal citizens, and other wings of administrations are completely relevant even today. To cite a few examples, the chapters of Thirukkural on detectives and the envoy are astonishingly relevant for today's polity. According to Thirukkural, spying by spies, the things they tell to test by other spies as well. So spying is an art, and spying is saving or defending a country from its enemies. In these days, the spies of the government are bought out by its hostile country, providing a huge amount of money and indulging in other modes of gratification. Thirukkural's idea of spying spies by other spies confidentially is a wonderful strategy which will be very useful for a head of the state in maintaining defense as well as prohibiting offensive attacks by enemies. Even though the idea is many centuries old, the advancement in modern science and technology is very much useful in implementing this, and I think there is no need to elaborate it. The chapter on the envoy is also highly relevant today. Thirukkural defines the qualities an envoy should possess in this chapter. For a diplomat in this modern age, these qualities are necessary. Diplomacy is the art and practice of conducting negotiations between representatives of groups or states. It usually refers to international diplomacy, the conduct of international relations through the intercession of professional diplomats with regard to issues of peacemaking, trade, war, economics, culture, environment, and human rights. International treaties are usually negotiated by diplomats prior to the endorsement by national politicians in an informal or social sense. Diplomacy is the employment of a tact to gain strategic advantage or to find mutually acceptable solution to a common challenge. One set of tools being the phrasing of statements in a non-confrontational or polite manner. Almost all the qualities Thirukkural prescribes for an envoy is apt and agreeable for the modern diplomat. The following verses of Kural prove this. Love, knowledge of his efforts, and a discriminating power of speech before the sovereigns are the three sine qua non qualifications of an ambassador. Sense, goodly grace, and knowledge exquisite, who hath these three for envoy's task, is fit. In terms concise, avoiding wrathful speech, who utters pleasant word, an envoy, he who gains advantage for his lord. These are all the qualities prescribed by Thiruvalluvar for an ideal envoy so as to maintain the government in an efficient way. If we venture to show the relevance of Thirukkural to the modern world and noble ideal similar to UNESCO goals for a peaceful world, the lecture may exceed its limit. My point is, the futuristic perspective of Thirukkural is in its universal approach and objective manner. Thirukkural belongs to a world 2000 years ago, which was divided into many kingdoms, where there were wars and conflicts specific to that area. But Thiruvalluvar has dreamt of an ideal world, and his suggestions and advices are boon to our age to guide us to shape a wonderful new world. I will conclude my lecture by a quotation from Professor K. Anbadagan, the scholar statesman and stalwart of the Dravidian movement. He explains why Thirukkural is hailed by Tamils as a guiding star. The greatness of Thirukkural lies in the three factors. One is the absence of parochialism and racial chauvinism in the work. Another factor is the humane outlook of the author. The third one is the universal appeal of the work. There is no reference, direct or indirect, to the Tamil language, the Tamil Nadu. In the same way, there is no specific reference to the three royal dynasties of Tamil Nadu or to the then ruling monarchs, the Chera, Chola, and Pandyan kingdoms of Tamil Nadu. So, Thirukkural is universal even during the period of Thiruvalluvar. Valluvar inculcates not only a philosophy of ahimsa, non-killing, and non-eating the flesh of birds and animals, but also envisages a philosophy of recognizing the feelings and yearnings of the man. He advises to follow the virtue of non-injuring others and instructs to alleviate the sorrows and sufferings of human beings. In visualizing new social order, Thiruvalluvar informs the humanity the ways and means to cross the barriers of community, race, language, and religions. He lays stress on the oneness of humanity. With this basic idea in his mind, he has given a fascinating picture of a perfect man or the citizen of the world. An ardent learner of Thirukkural will surely admit a futuristic approach of a poet who envisaged a warless world without any conflict, a happy family, and a frictionless society. Thank you.
Well,
Dr. MARAIMALAI ILAKKUVANAR. Thank you very much, Nandri. This was the most enlightening presentation on Thirukkural and world peace. And we thank you very much. And we kindly request you to send us your written speech as we are now preparing the publication that will comprise all proceedings since January 21. May I now invite Parthasarathi from the Valai Tamil and co-organizer of this conference to give his comments now. And probably Dr. Prabhakaran would like also to give his comments at the end. So, Parthasarathi, on to you. Hello?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Maraimalai Ilakkuvanar. Yeah. So you have done so this is the 20th conference. We have been going through for more than a year to bring this conference in English, to have the Thirukkural for World Peace and UNESCO. The theme is very much reached more than Tamil community, more to the non-Tamil audience, including UNESCO director and many other speakers who participated in this conference, started by our Justice Mahadevan. So today is a special day, that 20th event. You have done deep dive into the Thirukkural in English. So this is going to be a very big document and evidence for the world community to take this Kural into UNESCO. So we are on the way to reach the destination, and we are Armugam Parsuramen sir is already handed over the proposal to the Honorable Prime Minister, and it is almost reaching the Paris consulate. So hopefully this will be reality soon, and we are all will be there in Paris to celebrate this great event. Thanks for all the audience for joining today. If you have any questions, you can just raise your hand, and then you can just ask Maraimalai Ilakkuvanar. Anybody have any questions? So you can just unmute and ask the question.
Thank you very much. I'm Soma Elangovan from the United States. It is a pleasure indeed. I have heard Professor Ilakkuvanar talk about Thirukkural in my young days, and the picture behind him shows exactly like Maraimalai, and they both have done immense work to propagate Thirukkural, and with the help of Dr. Prabhakaran, it is getting to be known in the United States, even with our young population, and it's a great pleasure to see them here. I really appreciate the efforts of Ayya Arumugam in bringing it to the UNESCO and bringing the book. Ever since Albert Schweitzer wrote about Thirukkural, it has become very known to the elite, but it has to come to the level of the common man to be enormously effective in the human life in future. I appreciate Valai Tamil doing this in a very broad way and inclusive way, and I really appreciate all of you, and thank you all very much from the bottom of my heart, not only my heart, but from the hearts of the Tamils around the world. And my wife, who is propagating Thirukkural with the youth and the women here in the United States, would like to say a few words. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's very enlightening to hear about Thirukkural early in the morning. And I do this every day, like reading 10 Thirukkurals from Navalars Urai, which is more understandable to me. I was attracted to the Kurals which talk about administration, about the quality of amateurs like ministers helping the chief, and also about projects. How if a government wanted to start a project, instead of propagating widely, they have to do that in quiet sense and not to propagate widely and then accomplish it. At the end, they can let the people know what was the project about. It reminds me about Sedu Samutram project. When Kalaignar was trying to do his best, propagating and educating people and the government and all, they slashed it. So I said, probably if it was done in a quiet way, it would have been done. I think we have to take Thirukkural's advice on every matter in our life and keep reading over and over again. And I hope the young people will use our Thirukkural more often than what they are doing. They are going to the Sittananda, Vedanta, and things like that, but they have to do our Thirukkural first before getting into other forms of life guide. So thank you all. I hope it is accepted in UNESCO and becomes a worldwide distribution, worldwide administration, and helpful for world people. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ayya.
Thank you.
Marimai Ilakkuvanar, Ayya.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Ayya. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to mention about the small initiative taken to take it to the youngsters. The Thirukkural, recently we formed a Thirukkural Muttrodal movement. The government of Tamil Nadu is giving 10,000 rupees for any people who complete all the Kurals, recite all the Kurals every year. So there is a fund is allotted. So 10,000 rupees the government of Tamil Nadu, the Tamil Development Ministry is giving the letter to them through the district collectors. And so that is there. There was restrictions on that until the new government formed. Honorable Chief Minister has released the restrictions, and it's out of 70 people only they were getting that the award. Now it's unlimited. So just to make use of that, we formed a small group of 6 people who have been teaching to the kids, and they've been successful. They've trained more than 100 people, and now it's become a Thirukkural Muttrodal movement. And we have all 30 districts. We targeted for 3,800 kids per year, training them for free for all the government schools. And surprisingly, pretty much across the world, many people have joined together, and it's becoming going very well. In fact, the Harvard founder sponsor, Mr. Dr. Janagiraman, also joined together as taking this to 2,000 Thirukkural books sponsored to each district every year. So all the 38 districts, they wanted to distribute 2,000 people. They're also joining together now. So it's becoming interesting to cover 72 government schools so far. They've signed up to learn Thirukkural. So it's slowly, the students are showing so much interest in learning Thirukkural, and we need to encourage across the world to learn more and more, and empower these kids who are studying Thirukkural. We need to help them, guide them, and promote them so that there will be more and more interest to learn Thirukkural. Just to want to share this small development here in the ground. Thank you.
The golden age of Tamil has started, and really appreciate Ayya Arumugam Parsuramen and other world scholars and great people to work in this endeavor to bring Tamil to the world and peace to the world. Thank you very much. Thank you, Valai Tamil.
Thank you. Thank you, Somalangan.
Partha Prabhakaran. Dr. Maraimalai, your presentation today was very interesting, illuminating, and informative. And you talked about the culture of peace and how Thirukkural will help the world to be in a state of peace. And you covered the Inna Sayyamai, you covered Kolamai, and then you also talked about the various other scholars, their opinions about Thirukkural, and then you also mentioned what is the state of an ideal country. You talked about espionage, and Thirukkural has covered all items. like from personal virtue to politics to family life, everything. And your talk was very interesting. One of the best speeches on Thirukkural I ever heard. Thank you for your excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Mr. Rajendran is here today. I think he can say a few words.
I don't think he joined, sir.
Yeah, he is. It's there.
Or is that okay?
Thank you, sir. Thanks for inviting me. It was really, I never, like Mr. Ilavan, I never had the opportunity of listening to Professor Maraimalai Ilakkuvanar's father. But I could see that Tamil மக்கள் அறிவுடைமை மாநிலத்து மண்ணுவிற்கெல்லாம் எளிதென ஒருவர் சொல்வார். The way he presented very cogently, well documented, well prepared, and very, very, very succinctly, very fluently presented the case, how Thirukkural can contribute to the world peace. And that too, it's coming from a erudite scholar like him. I'm sure, like Dr. Arumam Parasuram was, as he was mentioning, that all these speeches will be definitely, it will be documented. It will make a very good background material for making a strong case when we move formally through both the governments, UNESCO, that Thirukkural will get its due place in the world arena. So thank you, sir, and it was a very enlightening speech. Thank you, Dr. Prabhakaran, for getting him onto this. In spite of the really busy schedule, I also really wonder. Putting one magazine is very difficult. Putting 3 magazines, electronic magazine, maybe it's electronic magazine, but like a honey bee, it collects material. Somebody will have to do the job. Definitely, it does the overall coordination, and it comes out very nicely. I salute you, sir, especially for that efforts. And the day is not far off when with all our efforts, we will see world war in UNESCO. Thank you, sir. Thank you once again.
Anyone else have any question or want to share anything? Please unmute yourself and you can talk. So, Arumam sir, can we conclude the session?
He's in mute.
Okay. Okay. So, if thanks for everyone joining this. Thanks for everyone for joining this great session. So we'll have a next session scheduled soon, and we shared the video of all the past sessions in the chat box. So you can also see it in the International Thirukkural Foundation website as well as Valai Tamil for all the past videos. And all these discussions, all these events are going to be recorded, and it's going to come up as a book. We'll be publishing the book very soon, hopefully before the event of ceremony in UNESCO. So we'll be publishing this book. So we'll have more and more speakers from various parts of the world will be participating in this great forum. Please stay tuned. Thank you very much.